Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast. And today I have Miss Nimesha Patel with me. Thank you, Nimesha, for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Of course. Well, Nimesha, why don't you go ahead and start by introducing yourself and telling us a little bit about you and who you are?
Sure. So I'm a licensed clinical social worker, which means I do mental health counseling, and I'm also a nutritionist, a dietitian, registered dietitian. So I do nutrition counseling. I became a dietitian first. So with dietitians, they've had a 4-year degree and then they undergo a registration exam.
Okay.
And that's a national exam. So when you meet with a registered dietitian, you know that they've gone through 4 years of training.
And this is your grad school?
This is undergrad. This is
Okay.
undergrad, yeah.
Okay.
And then they take the registration exam
Okay.
to show that they've met a certain level of education and training. And I say that because, there are also people who are nutritionists and they've had, most of them have had that 4 years of training, but they haven't undergone the registration exam.
Okay.
Right? And we like to differentiate because sometimes people are getting their certifications online. And so, it's important for people to ask, right?
Yeah.
And so nutritionists have special kind of training too. There are functional nutritionists who are really looking to see how is the body working inside and how is that helping a person to function on a day-to-day basis. So those are kind of the different categories. And I would definitely recommend that people look to see have they got that 4 years of training.
With the exam.
Yeah. With the exam for the registered dietitians, but also if they've had functional nutrition training, that's also important as well.
Okay.
So you could have two different types of nutrition professionals there.
Got it.
Just to be very careful about those individuals that have just gotten their certifications online.
And then after you finish the exam, do you have like post-training under a supervisor as a dietitian?
That's usually before the exam.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So you complete all of that before versus
Exactly.
like counseling, we do all that after.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. How long have you been doing this?
Oh, goodness. I'm going to date myself. So I've been doing this for close to 40 years now.
Wow.
Close to 40 years
There's
now.
no way,
yes.
Nimesha.
Yes,
40 years?
40 years, yes. Pushing on to that now, yes. So I became a dietitian first. And then I started working with the eating disorder population. And that's what got me interested in mental health. And that's when I pursued my graduate degree in social work. Because I really, I think it's just so important for people to understand that connection between the food that we put in our bodies, not just our physical health, but also our mental health as well.
The mind, body,
Exactly.
soul.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, us as mental health professionals, if people are not nourished, then it's kind of hard to do counseling with them, right? Yes. Their brains are not working, right?
I mean, in Ramadan right now, we're all struggling.
Yeah. It's people are fatigued at the end of the day.
Your brain's just not working.
Yeah. So I just find that both of those disciplines are really connected with each other.
Yeah.
And it really brings a lot to the sessions, when I'm working with people too.
So how long into your journey as a dietitian did you decide to do counseling?
I think it was about maybe 8 to 10 years, something like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
So you've been a therapist for close to...
Probably about 30 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
How do you deal with burnout? Because that's because, our average turnover in our profession is like, I think I was reading, it's like about 5 years.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah. Well, and you know this too, right? We talk to our clients about this. It's really about self-care, right? And I think that when I started my graduate degree in social work, I learned a lot about myself.
Yeah.
And a lot about, how am I going to work? We're trained about that, aren't we, right? We want to make sure that clinicians, that we are in the best state of mental health ourselves. And so that really helped me to, kind of create those boundaries and really limitations. And I think also with our training, it helps us how to work with the people effectively, because sometimes people are very challenging, just by the nature of mental health. And so our training really helps us to create those boundaries. Like, how is it that we also take care of our own mental and emotional health when we're working with somebody? How is it that we effectively set boundaries with them so that whatever their challenges are not impacting us mentally and emotionally? So I think that part of our training is so important.
Absolutely.
And I think it's really helped me as well.
Yeah.
Without that, it would have been very challenging.
And I think sometimes as clinicians, like we have all the answers. Like we can identify when we're going through burnout, but it's like having to take that step back and like how do you stop a helper from helping and realizing that you need to help yourself right now. I think it's a big challenge that a lot of us clinicians have.
Very much so. We are we're co-providers, right?
Yeah.
And so we want to be able to help people help them feel better. But we also learn that we can't fix everything for everybody.
Exactly.
Part of that is to really help them help themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're South Asian, right?
Yes.
And you work in the South Asian community, right? Talk to me a little bit about your experience navigating those mental health stigmas as you're navigating, the profession itself. And even for you to kind of decide to go into the mental health profession as an Indian woman, that must have been a big little hurdle for you to cross as well.
Well, yeah. And I remember people were saying, so why do you want to do social work? You should go into medicine, right? And isn't that typical of our South Asian culture, right?
My mom's like, psychos ke saath kaam karke psycho ban jaogi. I was like, Mom, I'm not going to go crazy working crazy. This is not what therapy is, first of all.
This is what it is, right? Yeah. Exactly. And so, initially I didn't think of it from a South Asian perspective. I really thought of it from an eating disorder perspective because, the nutrition and the mental piece go hand in hand so much, when it comes to treating eating disorders. So I really went into it from that perspective first.
Okay.
But then, you learn a lot when you're going through that graduate education and you learn a lot about yourself. You learn a lot about how we grew up, right, within the culture. And it's almost like you're looking at how we were raised, the people around us through a different lens. And it became that much more interesting then.
So in social work, I know for us when you go through like the LPC route, they mandate like 10 hours of personal therapy within your first semester of grad school, right? And that's to kind of work through any biases or, counter transference, things like that we may have.
Right.
Did social work have a similar requirement in y'all's programs?
No, at that time they didn't.
At that time they didn't.
But I think, honestly, when you're doing your clinical training, it just automatically comes up for you, right? And then, when you have a really good supervisor, you're learning that maybe this is some work that I need to do myself too. Because otherwise you do struggle. If you haven't done your own work, you are going to struggle, right? Yeah. And so it just made sense that I had to do my own work because it makes it that much more easier, to deal with other people and helping them to help themselves, right? Yeah. Because you've kind of gotten an idea as to your own.
You need to understand yourself first in order to understand other people, right? And I think that's the biggest thing is, I think when we talk about like even working with the South Asian population, right? Like how can we work with them when we can't even understand our own culture and the effects that it's had on us?
Yeah. And we have to remember that it can be also hurting them. If we haven't done our own work.
Absolutely.
And then we're meeting with them to help them, we also could place ourselves at risk of hurting them too, right? Because we're not able to set the boundaries, right? Or we're not able to kind of look at things more objectively. So it's very important that we do our own work.
Yeah.
Yes.
So why eating disorders, Nimesha? What got you into eating disorders? Because that's a tough population to work with.
It is. And again, there was no intention. There was no part of me that says I want to work with eating disorders. Yeah. I think when I started working as a registered dietitian, I wanted to try something different. So there was this opportunity that was coming up at a local hospital and they had an inpatient eating disorder unit. And so I decided to apply for it and I got the position. And I really enjoyed working as part of a team. I worked with mental health professionals as well as psychiatrists. But the other thing that was really interesting was that it wasn't talking about food and nutrition just in terms of carbohydrate, protein, fat, science, It was really talking about our relationship with food and eating, right? How do we grow up with food? What were the messages that we got around food when we were growing up?
Was food weaponized? Was it, comfort? What was it?
Comfort, exactly. Yeah. The emotional part of food and eating. And so that just kind of added to my knowledge, right? Because honestly, when I first became a dietitian, it was challenging. And I remember I worked in England for a brief period of time. And in fact, I worked a lot with the South Asian community. And it felt like there was a missing piece, right? Because there were people that just couldn't follow through with the education that was providing them.
Yeah.
And then when I started working with eating disorders, it's like you've now find a missing piece, which is, okay, it's not just about educating them about the nutritional quality of food, but now it's also about understanding how did they grow up with food, and what was the messaging around food and how did they use food in their lives. And so that added a whole other dimension.
Yeah.
And I find that really helpful now because people say to me, it's like, you know what? I never thought about it in this way before. I never thought about, how I use food.
Yeah.
I never thought, and it's not just about food, it's also about how we feel about our bodies as well.
How we feel about our bodies, how we feel about the food that we put into our bodies.
Yes.
Even I think going down to like our cultural foods, right? Like how we feel about that. Like growing up in America, like you can't take dal chawal to school. It's a stinky food, right? The whole idea was like, what was our relationship to our food?
Yes.
And how it made us feel and how it affected us overall as well. Like there's such a multifaceted, topic.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then also the trauma around food as well, right? Because again, if we're looking at our bodies, our culture, I think the larger culture, but also within our South Asian culture, we have certain biases about bodies and what those bodies look like. Yep. And that changes people's relationship with food and eating too, right? And so that, especially if it started at a very young age, it carries on into the adult years.
Oh, absolutely.
And people struggle with food and eating, but they don't realize it at that deeper emotional behavioral level.
Yeah.
They just think about, okay, I want to change my weight. What is it that I need to do? So my sessions really allow people to kind of go down at a much deeper level to understand why is it that they do what they do around food and eating.
Yeah. I remember like growing up, one time I was at this like party, right? This dawat, and like this auntie had just had a baby and she was like sitting there. She had like a little bit of biryani in front of her and she's eating, and this other auntie like took the plate of biryani away from her.
Yeah.
And I asked my mom, I said, Mom, why did she do that? And she was like, well, she just had a baby. If she eats rice, she's going to balloon up.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, I don't think that's how it works, Mother.
Yes.
Like, I don't think a plate of rice is going to cause her to balloon up.
Right. Yeah.
But it's just so wild, these preconceived notions and these like old wives' tales that we have in our cultures of like certain amount of food, but then at the same time, if you don't eat enough, then it's like, why aren't you eating, right?
Yes.
Like food is such a central
messages.
part of our culture. Like you go to someone's house, the first thing they're going to ask you is, what do you want to eat?
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Like you can't leave without eating something. There has to be chai. If I give you chai, you have to have like a plate
Something
of like
to eat.
biscuits or sandwiches or something, right?
Yes.
Like, so I think food is just such a central part of our culture
Very
that,
much so.
a lot of South Asians very much struggle with it and they don't have a healthy relationship with food. Right.
No, absolutely. And the messaging as well, right? Like you said, very mixed messages.
Yeah.
Eat, why aren't you eating enough? And then when the weight goes up, then it's like, oh, you really need to be careful with your weight.
Yeah. Like, right. Yeah. And like you should be eating. Or I remember like when my mom used to get mad at me growing up and like she like knew she was wrong, but she wouldn't say sorry, right? She'd just show up to my door with like a plate of fruit. And she'd be like, here, I cut this for you, eat it. And I'd be like, I don't want to eat it. She'd be like, you better eat it, right? Or like she'd make you your favorite meals. And that was kind of like how she would show that she loved you, right?
Yes.
But then at the same time, rice was a big thing. Like rice makes you fat.
Yeah.
Don't eat rice. So, which is a big staple in South Asian. Like carbs are a big thing in our culture.
Time. Yeah. And especially for the vegetarians amongst us too.
Naan and roti is how you live.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. And I mean, even with the lentils and, we have a lot of protein rich, vegetarian foods, but they're also rich in carbohydrate.
Very much so.
So it's like you're still getting that carbohydrate in your meals as well.
And then they're like, why do brown people have diabetes, right? Because we're eating these carb intense foods,
laden foods,
and I know you and I have had these discussions about like going back to like colonial days and the effect that the British colonization had on our people,
right,
and the artificial famine that we went through, which caused a higher rate of diabetes, heart disease, PCOS in women. Like we have like that little belly bloat. A lot of Indian people, you could be like on track with your weight, but you have a little belly.
Right.
You have that little bloat, right? And a lot of that, when you do the research, it goes back to the artificial famine and stress that we went through during the British colonization.
Right.
So like, I do think in order for us to understand ourselves, we need to understand our bodies and understand our food.
Absolutely.
And a lot of the medical research doesn't support us.
No, right. Absolutely. I think this is another example of kind of going down deeper, right? Is helping people to understand that, you know what, you may not necessarily be able to connect with your ancestors, but your genes have been passed down and they are connecting with you. And so how not to fight it, but how to work with it, right? And I think you had sent me that it was a podcast and they were talking about South Asian health and the fact that within South Asians, we struggle with diabetes, heart disease, blood pressure at much younger ages. We may suffer heart attacks at much younger ages. And they were pointing to that, right?
Yeah.
The genetics, but also the fact that research hasn't been really done.
Our markers look different.
Yes, our markers look different. Exactly.
It looks different than our Caucasian counterparts.
Yes.
And we see that in a lot of BIPOC populations, right? Like a lot of the medical research out there does not support minority populations.
No, absolutely.
So we really don't. We're going off of data that may not even be applicable to us,
Absolutely.
And we struggle.
And I remember once I attended a BIPOC eating disorder conference, and it was really powerful because they said that, there were institutions that were doing research on eating disorders.
Yeah.
But in those institutions, they were not allowing people of color to come in. And so, where that research was done, you know. Unfortunately, now I have to say that with a lot of eating disorder research, a lot of our treatment facilities here in the area, they are really working hard at making sure that they do understand the culture.
Yeah.
They do understand the food and really integrating a lot of that into their treatments. But I mean, if it was like when I first started, it wasn't
like
that diversity in within the treatment setting wasn't there as much as it is now.
Yeah.
So things are getting better, but I was just really surprised. Like, of course it makes sense. If people of color aren't allowed into those institutions, then the kind of research that have been done.
We're not bringing in that perspective.
We're not bringing that perspective in. Exactly.
Yeah. So what are some of the biggest issues that you see in your work when working with South Asians?
I my umbrella term is just when we look at our health. Have you heard of the term, within South Asians, we say health is wealth, right? That's what my mother says. Health is wealth, right? And so I feel like I need to extend that further to, our health is not just about our physical health, the neck down. Our health is also our mental health, the neck up, right? And that is so connected. And unfortunately, within our community, people kind of tend to minimize, or they feel there's a stigma, there's some shame and guilt around mental health issues. They're quite ready to go to their doctors about diabetes and high blood pressure and heart disease, all those things. But when it comes to mental health, they wait such a long time.
I always associate, because I know like in Pakistan, we call like the mental health institution, we call them Pagal Khane, right? Like crazy house, right? And I feel like just the terminology around it and our experience with mental health, there's this big cultural stigma that we're still working past till now, right? I find it so interesting because we are like the culture when it comes to like homeopathic remedies and Ayurveda and like, using turmeric to heal everything.
Right,
but like for some reason, when it comes to mental health, it's now pseudoscience.
It's exactly.
Like, I don't understand that.
Well, and unfortunately, the thing is that then people wait too long. Like I know that we're working with South Asians with eating disorders. Food is not taken as maybe seriously as maybe something like diabetes or high blood pressure or heart disease or anything like that. And so it's like, well, we can take care of this at home. And so with that, fix it, we can do this at home mentality, that eating disorder becomes worse. Yeah,
because at home it's normalized.
Yes, it's normalized. And at home it's treated more behaviorally, and the emotional mental health piece is overlooked.
Yeah.
And so I often find that children and teens struggle. And then it gets to the point where then they need to be entered into a higher level of care. So they often go into the hospital, they go into residential. But if we were to, kind of attack that ahead of time, then we can maybe avoid going into those higher levels of care. You know what I mean?
Because those higher levels of care are scary.
Yes, very scary.
And I have had like my teen clients, some of them, they come out more traumatized than like going in, right?
Yes.
Especially when it comes to like when we talk about like feeding tubes and force feeding. And it's a different ball game. And a lot of times it leaves the clients more traumatized.
Absolutely. So. And I find, and what I say to the South Asian families that I work with is that, if we can address this early on, then we can turn it around. If we can have the family on board with helping their loved one struggling with the eating disorder, then we can turn things around. Like we don't have to struggle as long as people have struggled.
Absolutely.
If we can educate not just this person struggling with the eating disorder, but the family as well.
Yeah.
So then they know how to support their loved one at home, right? And if we can do that early enough, then we can avoid things like higher levels of care, you know?
So like, I know like I work with kids primarily. So a lot of the teens and kids that I see, right? Like internal family system is just a big part of what I do, right? Like I can work with the kid, but unless I target the environment, unfortunately, there's not much that I can do. So bringing the families in, doing family sessions, stuff like that is a big nature of what I do on a daily basis. For you, your primary demographic that you work with a lot of times are adults, right? So how does that work for you with bringing in, like, let's say this is a married person, do you bring in their spouse or like, how does that work for you?
So very early on, I talk to the individual that I'm working with to say, this is an option. So if you feel like there's a member of your family that you're really challenged with, but you know who might be open to learning, the option is for you to invite them into the session so that we can educate them, but we can also educate them on how they can best support you. Because family members, even though they may not necessarily be doing it in the most helpful way, they are still trying. And we have to give them that
benefit of the doubt,
right? That they're trying to help their loved one. It's just that they don't know how to do it in an effective way. And so I say to people, if you feel like, your husband or your wife, or, parents, right? Invite them in and let's sit down and we'll just have a chat. And I can help them to see like, this will be a really effective way for you to help your daughter, your son. And also answer any questions that they have, because eating disorders is kind of like a new topic, I think, for many people in our community. And so they don't necessarily understand it.
They don't know what it looks like.
Exactly. And so, providing that education to them so that they feel empowered and that, oh, now we understand this more. And now we also understand how to help our loved one.
Do you find that it's usually well received, or do you find that sometimes there's a pushback?
Sometimes it's a little bit of everything, within our community, there's also the, what will people say, and the whole mental, right. And the mental health piece, how is that what kind of impression are people going to have of that? And so sometimes people are wanting to just be fixed quickly. And sometimes they are open,
That's such a struggle when people come in and like, whenever I meet a new parent or I meet a new client, so how many sessions is this going to take?
Yes.
And I'm like, it's different for everyone.
It's different.
I mean, that's on you. How many sessions do you need in order to get to where we need you to be?
Exactly.
I think it's like they come in with a solution focused mindset.
Yes.
And a lot of times they don't understand that this isn't like a 10 and you're done.
Exactly. And also it's about you and what's happening in the home, right?
And in your life in that moment too.
Right? Yeah. If we can all work together with this, then we can, make this as short as possible.
It's prioritization,
Yeah, if there's a lot of educational needs, if people are struggling to support, then it's going to take a little bit longer too, right? And you and I know that when there is trauma, that makes it take a little bit longer too.
Sometimes it gets worse before it gets better. It gets better, because we're picking at things that haven't been picked at for a while.
Yeah.
And like you said, we don't know the connection between our food and our past, right? Like we don't realize that, sometimes food was used as a way to shut you up.
Yeah.
right? Or food was used as a weapon to get you to do what we needed you to do, right? So again, food itself can be weaponized or, used for comfort or coping mechanism. And we don't even realize what we're doing because it's become so normalized and becomes muscle memory.
Yes.
So like to kind of shine a light on that and say, hey, this isn't a normal healthy eating pattern. This isn't a normal behavior. This is what this is doing for you. And then kind of getting them to understand that. And then depending on the age of the client, right? Like if we're talking about a teenager, usually they're a little bit more flexible. But if we're talking about adults that have been living like this for 30, 40 years, to get them to undo 30, 40 years of behavior, it's not going to be done overnight.
Right, exactly. And that's where the internal family systems approach comes in, because especially with adults, helping them to see that, okay, they have the nutrition knowledge, but they're struggling with applying that and applying it consistently. And so with the internal family systems approach, we look to, okay, so what part of you is resistant to doing this consistently? And that often helps us to go back to their past and understanding what might have happened in the past that's led to this messaging continuing on into the present. And so that has been very helpful for many folks I work with, is to really understand that messaging that's still inside of their minds. And how can we undo that messaging, right? And it's not about fighting it. It's and overtaking it. It's just more about, oh, so this is why I do this with this particular food, right? But I'm no longer in that situation anymore. I don't have to keep doing this, right? And so it's really like developing this like trustful relationship with those inner parts that are messaging in that way. To say, you know what, I am 55 years old. I can do this. I know how to do this, right? The other thing that I find that's really important is within our culture is that the language of talking emotions, right, is we haven't learned that.
We don't have the words.
Right. And if we don't have the words to use and express our emotions, or that we've been told that we can't express our emotions, then food becomes our go-to. Right?
Because there is like a combination of like eating and then the dopamine serotonin boost that we get, right? Like similarly to what you would do, like any sort of high, right? What is your drug of choice, right? For some people, it's a candy bar. For some people, it's ice cream. So I think that the understanding of this immediate need to feel good, right? And a lot of times we have a hard time just sitting in our feelings.
Absolutely. Well, when you have all those delicious processed foods out there,
look,
that
I'll tell
help
you
us
one thing,
instantly.
Nimesha, you're going to hate me, but if I can't eat hot Cheetos anymore, it's going to be a problem. I need my red dye 40.
It's hot Cheetos for you and it's tongue-in-cheek ice cream for me.
Tongue-in-cheek ice cream?
Love tongue-in-cheek ice cream.
See, so there you go.
We all have our foods that and we should be able to enjoy them.
We should, right? I should be able to have my red dye 40.
Yes. We make personal choices, right? And we know, right? So each of us do, but if we can take away the guilt and the shame, and the, oh my gosh, I shouldn't be eating this,
no, I should be eating that,
but to be able to like put it into perspective, to be able to put it place it in a part of your eating plan too, right? Without that guilt and shame. That guilt and shame really, really impacts people.
My favorite thing about you is that whenever I've referred clients to you, they always come back and they're like, she told me I could eat everything. And I'm like, yeah, she's not, it's not about restriction.
It's not about restriction.
You can still have your cake and brownies and all that, but where does that fit into our day to day? And that was it's just every time the kids and like even some of the adults that I refer to, they come back in, they're like, wait, she said I can still eat this. And I'm like, yeah, you can eat everything in moderation.
In moderation, but also understanding what is it that's pulling you towards that food? Right? Do you really enjoy it? Is it something that provides you with satisfaction? And then how can we make it, I talk about, in celebrities, we talk about A-listers, B-listers, and C-listers, right? Same thing with food. Your A-listers are your foods that really help your body to function. And then maybe you might have desirable foods that you're B-listers, right? But you're just really looking at your plate in terms of looking at like, okay, what is it that's going to really help my body to function really really, really well. And then if I do enjoy a cookie or a brownie or ice cream, I'm going to have that after my meal, right? But you're planning it and you're being intentional about it, right? And giving yourself permission.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
No, and I think that that's very important, right? I just think about like, these like fad diets.
Yeah.
And there's food trends, just like there's like, fashion trends, there's food trends. And, and I think these days it's like protein, like you need to have all the protein and creatine and all of that in your diet. And it's where do we draw that line?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? And
absolutely.
And again, what works for us and what doesn't work for us? Because there's so many people that struggle. They're like, I'm eating all this protein, but I'm still gaining weight. And I'm like, but are you working out with the protein? Because it will become fat real quick.
Right. And I think we have to appreciate that our bodies are different too, right?
Yeah.
And you're right, with the fad diets, people talk about intermittent fasting. People talk about, like you said, the protein-rich diets and combining everything together. I think people really need to look at what is it that works for themselves, their own bodies, but also about their lifestyle as well, right?
Yeah, like ketos and all of that. Is it? I feel like, is it maintainable?
Well, and for some people, it does work very successfully, but not for everybody.
Yeah.
And I think, when I'm working with people, I'm wanting to understand, what they do on a day-to-day basis. Are they looking after young children? Are they looking after elderly parents? Are they working full time? How are they managing all of that in their lives, right? Because if they're not able to, if they're struggling with all that, then me telling them, okay, this is how I want you to eat now, that becomes one more thing
on their
that
plate,
they have to do. And that way it doesn't set them up for success. So I'm really looking to understand what a person's day-to-day life looks like, and then looking like, okay, realistically, let's start doing this in a kind of meaningful pace. What did I say? Paced and meaningful.
Yeah.
Paced and meaningful.
I like that.
We want something that fits with your lifestyle. It may not be instant results, but at least it will be long term.
Yeah.
Right?
It's something that's manageable that you can upkeep, right? Versus like changing everything all at once.
Exactly. Yeah. And I said, if I teach you something and that stays in your mind now for the rest of your life, then that's successful, right? Because there's going to come a point in time where I may not necessarily be on your health journey, but now you have all of this information that you can now implement on a day-to-day basis, right? Because it's there within you, right? But you are ultimately now making the choices. You're making the choices that are
You're making more cognizant choices.
And more cognizant choices, which means sometimes you might say to yourself, you know what? I want to have that tongue-in-cheek ice cream right now, but I think I'm going to go ahead and have dinner first, and then maybe I'll come out and have the tongue-in-cheek ice cream, right? I'm still having it. Just be mindful about how I want to plan it.
Not eating the whole pint. Maybe I can have like a little bit instead.
But also I know that if I've had that protein inside of me first, and then I'll have my tongue-in-cheek ice cream, and I'll enjoy it later on too. As opposed to having that sugar crashing afterwards too, right? So I've gotten to know how my body works. And so how I eat food is based upon the messages that my body sends to me.
Yeah. Have you noticed any like food related behaviors that are very prevalent in South Asian communities?
I think the restriction, right? Because like we said before, that especially with folks that are vegetarians and they're trying to lose weight and they're struggling with their weight, so then they have a tendency of restricting their food intake, which is just so counterproductive.
Because they're already restricting with the vegetarians.
Exactly.
Right? Like, so like you're just not getting enough vitamins and minerals and proteins that you need.
And B12 is a really important vitamin, right? And then if you're restricting, then there are vitamins like B6 and minerals like magnesium and zinc that are really important for brain health. And so if you're restricting your food intake and you're a vegetarian, you're not getting those nutrients in your diet, which then means that if you're not getting enough of the neurotransmitters being produced, like serotonin for happiness or GABA for anxiety, we need those to keep that,
keep us leveled.
Keep us level. And so if they're so focused on their weight and then they're restricting, then that means that the brain starts getting affected.
And it also causes you to gain weight too, because your body goes into starvation mode, right?
It goes into starvation mode.
That's something that we see a lot of times too. I cannot tell you how many times I had people come in and they'll be like, well, I don't even eat anything.
Right.
And I'm like, well, that's the problem.
Yes. Yeah, because their metabolism has reduced with the restriction. Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
I've seen a big issue with like B12, vitamin D.
Yes, vitamin D as well, yes.
Calcium, I think a lot of times brown people have very reduced in those three as well. And iron.
Yes,
iron
too.
Yeah,
exactly.
So what do you recommend for people that like are on these like specific diets, like vegetarian, or like they want to do ketosis, for example, or they want to be in a protein-rich diet? How do you kind of help them navigate that? Do you provide diet plans or?
Not really. So what I do first is I have what I call a food frequency list. And so that's just a list of all the different foods in all the different food groups. Because I want to understand, first of all, what do they like? What do they dislike? What are they afraid of eating?
Oh my God, do you use that food pyramid that they taught us in elementary school?
No.
Where they told you to eat like 8 servings of bread a day?
No. That's how I was trained actually 30, 44 years ago.
Really?
It was 12 servings of bread in a day. Yes, exactly. That's it. That's
Can you
how I was
believe that,
trained.
Nimesha?
Yeah, I know. Here we are 40 years later, right? And it's just like,
eating all that
that
bread.
is just ridiculous eating all that bread, right?
Oh my God.
But it's not to say that bread is not okay. It's okay. But my food frequency list teaches me about each person, what they like, what they don't like, what they fear, what they feel like they crave. And then when I get that food frequency list, now we can start talking about food and the role that food plays in their life, right? So if they are a person who, let's say, for instance, they're an emotional eater or they're a binge eater, they're eating large quantities of food uncontrollably over a short period of time. So let's talk about this. How are you eating during the day? And so I get an idea as to how frequently they're eating during the day. If they're restricting their food intake, then I know that, well, the reason why they're binge eating or overeating is because their body has just been like starved throughout the whole day, right? So we talk about like, okay, these are protein-rich foods that you like. Let's start building up a meal for you that contains protein-rich foods that you enjoy eating. That contains, vegetables that you enjoy eating. That contains starches that you enjoy eating. And yes, you like to eat sweet foods. Let's plan that at the end of a meal so that your insulin isn't released straight away as you're taking these carbs, right? Your insulin is a hormone that when it's released, it's looking to store the sugar, send it into the cells for energy. But sometimes because the cells are like, we've had enough, it then stores it as fat, right? And so we want to make sure that we're eating the protein foods first. And it also stops the blood sugar levels from skyrocketing and going back down.
To crash,
right?
Yeah.
So when we have protein, we have fiber and fat. Healthy fats are great for us and our brains. I see people sometimes with cholesterol levels of 130 and people say, oh, that's okay. But you know what? Then you're depressed. Remember, our brain is made up of fat and cholesterol too, right? So we need to have that proteins, but the fiber from the vegetables and the fats there, right?
Yeah.
And people come back and they say, you know what? I didn't feel like I had those cravings during the day. Because now they're feeding their bodies,
So cravings are just a result of your body not getting enough of something.
Not enough of that. Or, broadening it to like, okay, if you're sad or you're depressed, then you start craving sugary kinds of foods, starchy foods. Yes, exactly. If you're just needing to be comforted, then you're going to need foods that are a combination of starch and fat to increase your endorphins there. So yes, sometimes it's because you're not eating enough and your blood sugar levels are crashing and then skyrocketing. But other times it's maybe when you're sad or when you're just needing physical comfort, you're needing things like that. Or sometimes when you're stressed, right? You eat certain types of foods.
So how like some people, if they're stressed or depressed, either they overeat or they undereat. What do you think is the result of that? Like which way you fall on that spectrum?
So if we're looking at overeating and undereating, overeating is simply that, when they're sad, they're looking to bring that carbohydrate in because they feel like that's going to raise their serotonin levels. Yeah. With the undereating, if they're anxious and they're anxious about their weight, then they'll undereat at that point. And it becomes kind of a vicious cycle because when they're not getting those nutrients in,
then
their brain isn't being fed. And so the anxiety then picks up even more, right? So yeah, it's about that education and how that food is interacting with your body and the kinds of signals that you're getting from it. But it's also about how the outside world is impacting you, right? So if you're depressed because there's something happening in your environment and then you turn to food, to increase your serotonin levels.
Yeah.
You're anxious because of something that's going on in our environment, right? That can lead you to restricting, or it can lead you to overeating as well, right? Stress, right? Sometimes even focus. Like sometimes people find themselves turning to things like candy bars, right? 3:00 in the afternoon, candy bars and coffee. It's to kind of help them to focus then at that particular point, right?
Yeah.
So we see like food can have so many
I've
different
seen a
roles
lot of it
inside.
with like ADHD.
Yes.
In food.
Yes.
That's a wild one.
Yes. And that's interesting that you bring that up, because I find most of the folks I'm working with who struggle with compulsive eating or binge eating, they often have ADHD.
Yeah.
And they're just not able to create that structure in their meals because of the ADHD.
Well, their executive functioning is always on a struggle bus, right? So you can't create structure in your life, period. When it comes to like keeping up with time, keeping organized stuff with your like home, stuff like that. So like when it comes to food, it's like just another task or another thing. And I see that a lot where they will restrict because it's like to make a decision on what to eat. That thought alone is just so overwhelming. They're just like...
Yes. And then they'll let time go past and they'll restrict, and then suddenly they're really hungry.
And then they'll just
eat there at that time. Yeah. And the other thing is that a lot of the medications with ADHD suppresses their appetite too.
Yeah,
so
Adderall and all that does suppress your hunger. Yeah. It's interesting to see. It really is. Like how much food plays a role in our lives.
Absolutely. You know? The other part that's also, I think, some of the missing pieces is hormones, especially our cortisol hormone, which is our stress hormone, and it goes shooting up. And then that impacts other hormones like insulin. It affects our sex hormones like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. And in turn, that also impacts our eating behavior too. Right? So, with women my age who are in perimenopause, menopause, I also talk to them about, let's check your hormones and let's see where your hormones are.
Right,
you mentioned PCOS earlier on, right? We want to check the insulin, see, is there something happening there, right? Yeah.
So like when you're PMSing and you're craving those sugary snacks, why is that? Why do we crave chocolate, Nimesha?
So, a lot of times there's certain nutrients that are rapidly used up in that PMS time. And because they're rapidly used up, like the magnesium, the zinc, the B6, then your moods are affected, right? And when your moods are affected, guess what we do, right? We want instant comfort, and we know the go-to foods that provide us with that instant comfort. Chocolate also has magnesium in it too, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
So what I usually recommend to people who are having that PMS is like a week before your menstrual cycle starts is maybe take some supplements with magnesium, zinc, and B6. So you're kind of replenishing those stores as they're being rapidly used up, and then see what your PMS symptoms are like there at that point. Do you find yourself feeling physically in a lot of pain? Do you find yourself craving? See what happens there,
Yeah. So you, as a person that has a lot of this knowledge, what does your day-to-day diet look like?
So for me, what I've learned about myself, so I do enjoy sweet foods. In fact, I never used to enjoy our desi sweet foods as much as I do now.
Oh yeah, like gulab jamuns and jalebis and all that.
I really do enjoy them more now than I did when I was younger. For me, I know that in my meals, there needs to be a rich source of protein. For me, I know that it's difficult for me to be a vegetarian. So it's important for me to have protein. It's important for me to have a lot of fiber. So in the form of, it could be salads, but it could be a lot of cooked vegetables as well.
Like carrots and like mixed veggies.
And then, I enjoy my starches as well, right? But when I'm having those sweets, I know for me, it's usually at the end of a meal, right? Because if I eat that first, then I'm not going to want to eat some of the other foods. Right. The other thing for South Asians too is to look at genetics. So I recently went deeper with my lipid profile, and I had my LP(a) checked, and that came out really high. It came out 3 times higher than what the normal is. And so now when I'm talking to somebody South Asian, I said, you know what? Don't just check your cholesterol and triglycerides. Go down deeper. Because genetically, if we all are susceptible to that, we need to know about that, because that can also predispose people to things like heart attacks and things like that. So it's important for us to know about that, right? So I keep that in mind now,
I was looking into some of the research, and it takes about 3 generations to undo, the genetic DNA that we kind of carry out. It takes 3 generations to undo that.
Interesting.
So
I didn't know
if
that.
we're thinking like partition times for South Asians, right? That was my great grandma, right? So I'm now the 3rd generation.
Right.
So if we have heart issues, diabetes, PCOS, it starts with us. Right. In our generation. And we have to be the ones that create these healthier eating habits, have these healthier understandings of our mental health and our overall health.
Yes.
And then kind of working to undo that so that our kids and our grandkids, then they don't have to face the same issues that we're facing. Right. So I know sometimes it's just like, well, like I look at my mom and her family is rampant with diabetes. Like she had an aunt that lost a leg. Like my aunt had her thumb, amputated before she passed because of it. So like diabetes is really bad in their family. And it was the thought process on their side was like, we're all going to get it.
Yes, they've accepted.
They've just accepted it. They're like, they call it sugar, right? Sugar sabko hoti hai, humko bhi ho jayegi, right? But they don't realize, no, but like, type 2 is actually triggered by stress, not by food. So if we work on reducing our stress levels and our moods, then we can kind of actually prevent it or prolong it from affecting us much longer, And I think that that's one of the other things is like sometimes we look at our family history and it's like, well, we're going to get it. Like everyone in my family has heart disease, so I'm going to get heart disease. But no, if you look into it, you know that this is something that is rampant in your family. There are preventions that you can take that can actually help you.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think it's not just like knowing, but understanding and applying. And I think that application is where we struggle the most.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Change.
And again, because food has such an emotional connection as well, right?
Yeah.
Not just for the individual, but for everybody around them, family-wise.
Like it's Ramadan right now, right? And there's like, girl, the amount of samosas and pakoras I have consumed in this past month is wild.
Right.
Where in like my other 11 months of the year, we don't eat samosas like that. We don't eat pakoras like that, right? It's not something that my mom makes often.
Right.
But like Ramadan comes around and now all of a sudden we want all of this food.
Yes.
It's wild. It's crazy to me.
The cravings, Yes.
Like throughout the day, I'm like, oh my God, I really want Taco Bell. I haven't been to Taco Bell in years.
Yeah. Do you see how the brain is so sophisticated in that way, right? It's wanting you to think about food. And the other area that I haven't mentioned is our digestive system, our gut health. So we actually have bacteria that send messages to our brain about cravings. So when I'm working with somebody who's struggling with compulsive eating or binge eating, and they've been eating a lot of very processed, sugary kinds of foods, the bacteria that enjoy those foods now start increasing in population. And then they send that message up to the brain to say, hey,
feed me.
Let's have some more of this, and so the brain starts those cravings there too, right? So there is that real connection between the microbiome in the digestive tract and the brain. Serotonin, our happy chemical, is produced there in the digestive tract as well. So when I'm doing an assessment, I always want to ask people, even though I'm doing a mental health assessment, I always want to ask them, digestively, how are you feeling? Symptoms that they may be having, things like that. Check it out. Because if there are problems there, then that may be impacting their emotional health and their mental health too, right?
Yeah,
or
like
their
I
eating
developed gastritis and GERD at the age of 25. And it was just purely from the amount of stress that I was taking on and putting onto my body, right? Like lack of sleep. And then I was like drinking 8 cups of coffee a day. I know it's not bad, but just black coffee on an empty stomach, it does wonders to your stomach lining. So I developed gastritis and GERD, and it got to the point where my doctor was like, if you want to enjoy coffee, girl, you got to stop. Like you got to put something there first before the coffee. Yeah. So it's like, again, and I was just like, I grew up seeing my parents just drink a cup of chai on the go. And then, you know, like it's one of those things. So I was like, all right, I just drink my coffee and I'm good. I don't feel hungry. Right? And I think that's the other thing. I don't feel hungry in the morning. But it's like you've trained your body to not feel hungry in the morning.
Yes.
And a lot of the things that we crave and a lot of these behaviors or like, we're like, oh, I don't need to consume as much food as everyone else, or I don't need this, or I don't need that. It's like, no, you've trained your body to do that. We do need it. Like you do need to eat meat. You do need to eat, you do need sugars. You can have ice cream. You can do this, but
Yes.
within moderation, and it's all about retraining your body.
Yes. Well, and listening to your body. It's really about listening to your body and how your body responds to you when you're eating certain types of foods.
So how do you work past that guilt, Nimesha?
The guilt is, we need to understand where that guilt comes from, right? It's like I was referring to you before. It's like when I'm meeting with somebody and they're like, I just feel so guilty about this. So, okay, so where did that guilt come from?
Yeah.
Tell me about the times in the past. I shouldn't feel guilty about
having a candy bar. You should have a candy bar.
Exactly. Yeah. So where is that? What's the messaging that's going on inside of your brain that's saying you should not be eating that candy bar? And, when you were younger, how did guilt play a role in your relationship with food and eating? And that's when a lot of the stories come out, the narratives come out that, I remember experiencing this with this member of my family or with my friends. These kinds of comments were made for me. And so there's just this guilt that I don't deserve this type of food ever, but I can't stay away from it.
And when you eat it, there's like this in secret. And
Oh, that's right. They do it.
It's like a dirty, it's like your dirty secret. Yeah,
exactly. And so our work is on like, okay, so that food itself is not going to destroy your health. How can we make it permissible, but not necessarily in the way that you've been eating it right now, right? And how can we take that guilt association away from that food?
Taking that label of bad away from it, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Because none of us want to feel bad.
No.
When we feel bad, then we're not we're not feeling good, right? At that point. So
like we need to eat food. Food is our source of energy.
Yes.
So we shouldn't feel guilty about consuming what we need to do, right? Exactly. And I think that's where a lot of us struggle. Like it's a love-hate relationship. Like I need you. Yes. But I don't want to need you. But at the end of the day, I eat you anyways because my willpower is only for so long.
Right.
So
and so instead of making it a love-hate relationship, I work on making a collaborative relationship, Yeah. And that, okay, this is food that I can have. How am I going to make a choice? How am I going to have it? How am I going to choose to have it?
Yeah.
That's more where I want people to put their energy
into,
right? Not into the I can or I can't, but more into I can have this. How am I going to do this?
Are you a fan of using food as a reward? Like some people are like, oh, it's my cheat day, and I'm gonna work up to this.
Yes.
Like I deserve this candy bar, but only if I've eaten good for 5 days.
Right, and that goes back to that psychology behind eating, right? That I deserve this. Well, you deserve food. It shouldn't be conditional to anything else, right? You deserve food. Again, it's about how does your body respond to that food, and then make choices as to how you're going to have that food in your day-to-day life or weekly, whatever, sometimes, especially around the holidays, right? There's special foods that are only made during those times and you enjoy them. Why not enjoy them? Right? And give yourself that permission to say, this is Ramadan or this is Christmas or this is Diwali. I'm going to enjoy this particular food because this is a food that's only at this time of the year. But then the next thing becomes, but I don't have to overeat it. I don't have to binge eat it. I can take this food and I can have leftovers tomorrow and I can enjoy it tomorrow too. Right? Yeah. So you see how you use that mental energy to think about it in a different way as opposed to being stuck in the I shouldn't have this. This is not good for me. This is not good for my body. And getting caught up in the guilt.
Caught up in that while you're trying to eat it.
Yeah. And it takes away the joy out of it too, right?
It does. Yeah. It does. Yeah. And it makes it something that is necessity and needed and makes it like poison.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And the guilt and the shame hang around too. Right?
That's the worst.
That's the worst, yeah. And so I say to everyone, it's like, okay, we're going to leave the guilt and the shame at the door.
Yeah.
Let's just talk about, how you did. And, people feel sometimes guilty about not following through on what I've asked them to do. And I said, even if you didn't do it, that's okay, because now we have data. Yeah. We have data that tells us what went wrong, what got in the way, and why what got in the way. And so then it gives us data to say, okay, what can we do differently now next time around, right? Yeah. So don't worry about if you're not able to do it or you didn't do it the way that we talked about doing it in the session.
I always tell my clients, like, think of it like you're beating your high score. Like, when you used to play those video games? Yeah. And then like you had like a high score and you just had to kind of beat that. Yeah. I'm like, think of it this way. Like if you've been binging or you restrict, I'm like, how long has it been? Oh my God, you went 3 days this time around without binging? let's try to make it 4, you know?
Yes.
And like I try to get them to beat their high score. And
Yes.
and it's a way of saying like, hey, I didn't fail.
Yes, exactly.
These are 3 more days I didn't
3
go
more
into
days,
binging,
exactly.
right? So, and I find that helps a lot when working with addictions in general. Like when looking at addiction work, like having them understand, you know, like, oh, I was a year sober and then I broke my sobriety.
Yeah.
Well, you went a year without alcohol.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see if we can go longer this time around.
Absolutely.
Right?
And also kudos to you for coming back into counseling.
There you go.
To say, okay, I relapsed, but I want to get back on track again, which is a lot different than what you would have done in the past,
which
right?
is go on a bigger bender.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So taking that guilt and shame away and to be able to say, this is life. And in life, sometimes it's going to happen. But how do we turn it back around sooner than later?
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Nimesha, for coming on our show today. This was very educational. I loved it.
I'm pleased. It was a really nice chat. I just felt like it was just a very casual chat.
Yeah. Tell them a little bit about your practice and where they can find you.
Yes. So my practice is called Healthy Lifestyles. I do virtual sessions throughout Texas. I'm licensed in the state of Texas. And I also do in-person sessions, obviously, you know, with you.
Yeah.
We both share an office together. And so it's offering both.
Yeah. Nimesha's great in person. I feel so bad because I have all the kids. So we're in there playing Uno and stuff and yelling if we lose. And I can barely hear Nimesha, but it's always so peaceful. And it's always so, you're such a peaceful energy about you, Nimesha. Always.
Thank you. But I think the energy that you have too, because I know when I'm referring pediatric, you know, children, teens, I know they're going to have a good time with you.
Oh, thank you.
And so, you know, different ages need different things, right?
Yeah.
And so for you to have, you know, I hear the faith that's going on in your sessions. And I said, you know, this is great because this means that children and teens are really connecting with you.
Yeah.
And that's what we need. We need that connection to occur for good work to be done.
Good work to be done, yeah.
Exactly.
It's good. It's amazing. I was sending them to you too. I'm like, don't worry. I was like, she's like Mary Poppins. She's amazing. I'm like, don't worry, you guys, you're going to love her. She's awesome. Because they're always scared. I don't know why. Like whenever it comes to like, you know, because as mental health professionals, we like part of our, you know, self-awareness is recognizing when we've hit our limitations in our skills and in our abilities, right? So with eating disorders, with food, you know, food-related issues, I have a wall, right, that I can do. And then after that, I'm like, okay, Nimesha, I need you, right? So like sometimes, you know, like you said, building that rapport, building that connection with clients, it's like, it's hard because they feel like you're breaking up with them. And it's like, no, this is good.
Yes.
This is what's needed for you to continue in your journey. So I'm always saying, Nimesha is great. You're going to love her.
Yeah.
And you know, like every client that I've sent you has always come back with like, she was amazing. I'm like, I know.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course.
It's nice to hear because it is challenging because, you know, especially with food, it's so personal for many people.
So personal.
And the stereotype that they have of a dietitian / nutritionist is that they're going to tell me what to eat.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be able to eat the way that I was able to eat before.
And even like the shame and guilt, because like so much of us is about hiding this, like hiding this part of us from everybody. Like I don't need people to know how much I eat or like I have a bag of candy in my room that nobody knows about, right? Like there's so much shame there. So like for them to come to you and say, hey, I do have like a stash of candy in my room that I hide from everybody, right? Or I have these things going on, like and for you to make them feel seen and heard and not feel judged, it's an amazing skill to have, Nimesha.
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you taking your time
Thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed this.
Thank you. We'll see you guys next time.